In Texas tonight, a weather crisis is now a humanitarian nightmare. Millions are without clean water, others waiting hours in line for food. And now the cost and damage from the disaster is beginning to become clear. Morgan Chesky reports from Dallas.
Tonight, the end of the Texas deep freeze, turning one crisis into another.
Hearing multiple calls saying that the roof is on fire.
Overnight, flames tore through a Killeen hotel. The fire made even worse by a failed sprinkler system, damaged when it froze. The water issue still impacting more than 14 million Texans, now forced to boil or find bottled water till supply is deemed safe. Today, President Biden approved an emergency disaster declaration. Frustration shared statewide. With the extreme weather, energy prices soared. Now, residents who had power reporting energy bills in the thousands.
This is a catastrophic failure.
A catastrophic cost, too. The freeze on its way to surpassing Hurricane Harvey as the state's costliest weather event in history.
Shalom Israel to the hopeful elect. We bringing forth another video. Before we get started, I want to give all praise, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakakadash. That's the name of the Most High, in the name of the Son, coming in the Holy Spirit, in our native Hebrew language. I also want to give honors to the head elders of Great Millstone, and also to the brothers of Mysteries of the Kingdom, the Trilogy, and Yahweh the Maccabees. They're my teachers, so I'm always post their YouTube channels in the description box so you can check them out. So this video here will be titled Judgment of America, the Plagues of Egypt. Because along with the Most High tearing this place down from the inside, he's going to put a bunch of fear in everybody, and he's going to show his judgments. He's going to get everybody's attention. When this whole C virus popped off last year, the Most High stopped everything. He stopped the production of movies, he stopped music shows, he stopped basketball, he stopped everything. Now it's the Most High putting the whole world on timeout to show his power. How you can take one incident and shut down everything. From that point, everybody wearing masks and stuff, and everybody scared to be next to anybody or even talk to anybody. People scared to come out the house. So that was the Most High putting this whole place on lockdown to do one or two things. You're going to go on lockdown, and you're going to continue to do wickedness, or you're going to seek him, read this Bible, pray using the correct names, and continue to seek him and follow after him and live according to this Bible. So that's why the Most High had this place on lockdown. Sort of the Most High proving this point to each one of us. Like, you can't go nowhere. The clubs closed, the strip clubs closed. You can't party. You at home. So if you already wicked before that point, how much more wicked can you be with everything on lockdown? And for the ones that are not truly wicked, we searching and doing research, and then we come across the Bible, like, oh, this is all in the Bible. So that's what this whole lockdown has been about from a spiritual perspective. And the Most High accomplished his goal, of course. The wicked fell into more wickedness, and those that will seek the Lord eventually, they turned to the Lord or started seeking him more. The Spirit hopped on me to make this video because this past few days we had a snowstorm here in Texas. I was like, okay, cool, snow. Okay, it was bad. Nobody could drive, so everybody bought up everything in the store. So it was a shortage on some cleaning supplies and some food items. It's like, all right, cool. Then the power started going out. So people freezing with no heat and can't cook nothing. I'm cool. I'm thinking that this was the end, that this was it. All right, then the water going on and off. Like, okay, no water. So we about to have a famine of water and a famine of food. A couple days later, they talking about the water contaminated. And I'm going to show y'all this video right here.
When we got the message to check our water, to not use the water to boil it for 5 minutes, we just wanted to check it. And so this is what we came up with. I don't know what the hell this is. They're telling us not to even wash our face with it.
I don't even know if that die if you boil it.
Yeah, this is why they telling us we can't wash our face.
This is terrible.
Let these folks in Texas know.
So this was a video on Facebook. So they were saying that we have to boil the water to make it safe to use for washing your face, brushing your teeth, cooking, drinking. So I'm like, man, they really trying to trap us to come after us. Because the power was going out at night. I'm thinking they about to try to come round us up. Not only that, when my friend sent this text message right here, FEMA is here in Texas. If you're still without power or need a place to warm up or clean up or sleep until things restore, here's FEMA. But you will need the date of the disaster, your social security number, your address, your income, and home and apartment insurance info. Like, if you helping people out because they don't got no water or no power or need to clean up, or they need food for their children, why you need all this info? Why you need their address and their income and their social security number? They're trying to trap people They're trying to get the ones that's too weak to wait things out. And eventually this stuff's gonna happen again, but much worse. They're gonna come after those of us who go refuse to come to FEMA, or those who just gonna ride it out because they got faith in themselves or faith in the Most High. For whatever reason, they don't go to FEMA, they're gonna search them people out. So when I saw this, I'm like, oh man, y'all ain't slick. So now we're gonna get into these plagues of Egypt. We're gonna show that the C virus was just another plague from the Most High. So the plagues of Egypt is not going to be the same plagues here in America, which is the spiritual Egypt. And we know that this is a spiritual Egypt because on the back of the dollar, there's a pyramid signifying to those with spiritual eyes that this is Egypt all over again. That's why we here in captivity. So the same plagues that happened in ancient Egypt are not going to happen here. It's going to be some of the same ones, but different. The plagues here are going to be more geared towards America and ways that would be necessary to break America down even more. So when we think about the C virus, what's one thing that it did? It messed up the economy. People couldn't go to work. People couldn't make money. People was losing money. People was going homeless. People was starving. People was going broke. So they came with these stimulus checks to try to stimulate the economy. When you read the book of Exodus, when the Most High Yahweh brought these plagues upon Egypt, the Most High was destroying their economy because we would just read it and be like, oh, bloody water. Okay, they had bloody water. Okay, plague of frogs. They had a bunch of frogs come. Oh, they had a bunch of flies come. But we dismiss the effects that came along with those plagues, so we don't even think about it. So now we're going to sort of read through the book of Exodus and discuss how these different plagues might have affected the economy of Egypt and how the same stuff the Most High is doing now to America, which is spiritual Egypt. Ezekiel chapter 5, verse 12. A third part of thee shall die with the pestilence, and with famine shall they be consumed in the midst of thee. And the third part shall fall by the sword about thee, and I will scatter a third part into all the winds. Then I will draw out a sword after them. So a third of the people is going to die by famine and pestilence. And we're going to look up this word pestilence. A fatal epidemic disease, pretty much the C virus. And the third is going to die in the city by the sword. The third part will escape the city, and the Most High going to send out a sword after them. So that's what's going to happen here in America. That's why the C virus is killing anybody it wants. That's why the so-called blacks were dying in the city by the sword of Esau. And wherever we go, we die by the sword of Esau, even in other countries. That's why it says that I will draw the sword out after them. Oh, before we continue, I'm going to show you this definition of plague. So plague can mean a contagious bacterial disease, or it can also mean cause continued trouble or distress. And if you look at the synonyms, you got afflict, cause suffering, torture, torment. So the Lord was tormenting the people of Egypt with these plagues. But now we're going to get started in Exodus chapter 7, verse 5. The Most High said, and the Egyptians shall know that I am the Lord when I stretch forth mine hand against Egypt and bring out the children of Israel from among them. So when the Most High put these plagues upon Egypt, it was a build-up to getting his people, the Israelites, out of Egypt. So same thing here. As the Most High released more plagues upon America, there's going to be a build-up to get the elect out of here. The elect are the people who sought the Most High, who pray using the correct names and has the correct understanding of the Bible, and know that they're Israelites, not black, Mexican, or Indian, Puerto Rican, and so on. We're going to go to chapter 7, verse 20. And Moses and Aaron did so, as Yahweh commanded, and he lifted up the rod, and smote the waters that were in the river, in the sight of Pharaoh, and in the sight of his servants. And all the water that were in the river were turned to blood. And the fish that was in the river died, and the river stank. And the Egyptians could not drink of the water of the river, and there was blood throughout all the land of Egypt. So when the water turned to blood, there was no water. It was like here in Texas. We had a snowstorm, and a bunch of pipes bust, so people was without water. Once the water sort of started back working, the water was contaminated with some sort of bacteria. So they said that we had to either boil the water or microwave it to kill the bacteria. Now, not to mention, all this time, people been without power for 3 and 4 days. So how you gonna boil the water or microwave it to make it safe to use when you ain't got no power? And the people who ain't got no water, how you gonna boil the water that you ain't got? So same thing here. The Most High messed up their water supply. You can't water the plants. You can't water the farms. Animals can't drink. People can't drink, can't nobody shower. All the fish in the river died, so that's a source of food cut off. So that's what's going on with this plague. The Most High was hurting the economy. Now we're going to go to Exodus chapter 8, verse 5. And the Lord spake unto Moses, stretch forth thine hand with thy rod over the streams, over the rivers, over the ponds, and cause frogs to come up upon the land of Egypt. And Aaron stretched out his hand over the waters of Egypt, and frogs came up and covered the land of Egypt. Now this here might have messed up the economy a few ways, but more importantly, it was just a pest. So like if you got an infestation of ants or bees or roaches, it's just more annoying than anything. It's more annoying than harmful. But if you continue to verse 12 through 14, and Moses and Aaron went out from Pharaoh, and Moses cried unto the Lord because of the frogs, which he had brought against Pharaoh. And Yahweh did according to the word of Moses. And the frogs died out of the houses, out of the villages, and out of the fields, and they gathered them together upon heaps, and the land stank. So the Most High said, okay, I'll get rid of the frogs by killing them all. So now y'all got the stench of death through all of Egypt. That's kind of symbolic to now, because we know that FEMA got all these black FEMA coffins. Amazon is moving all these cadaver bags, which are body bags, because they know it's going to be great death in this country. There's going to be more bodies dead than they can deal with. It's going to be bodies just all over the ground, and you can't even dispose them. So that was symbolic to here. Now we're going to go to chapter 8, verse 16. And the Lord said unto Moses, say unto Aaron, stretch out thy rod, and smite the dust of the land, that it may become lice throughout all the land of Egypt. And they did so, for Aaron stretched out his hand with his rod, and he smote the dust of the earth, and it became lice in man and in beast. All the dust of the land became lice throughout all the land of Egypt. So if you think about lice, that probably made a lot of cattle sick, a lot of people sick, people itching. He's affecting people's health at this point. So sort of like the C virus, people can't go to work because they sick or got this going on. Same thing here. People can't work or do what they got to do because of the infestations of frogs and then lice. Like we go to chapter 8, verse 24. And the Lord did so, and there came a grievous swarm of flies into the house of Pharaoh, and into his servant's house, and into all the land of Egypt, and the land was corrupted by the reason of the swarm of flies. So it had another infestation. People can't do what they got to do because flies everywhere. So the Lord here was hurting the economy real bad. And now we're going to go to Exodus chapter 9, verse 3 through 6. Behold, the hand of the Lord is upon thy cattle, which is in the field, upon the horses, upon donkeys, upon the camels, upon the oxen, and upon the sheep. There shall be a grievous murrain, and the Lord shall sever between the cattle of Israel and the cattle of Egypt. And there shall nothing die of all that is the children of Israel. And the Lord appointed a set time, saying, tomorrow. And the Lord shall do this thing in the land. And the Lord did that thing, and all the cattle of Egypt died. But the cattle of none of the children of Israel died, not one. So the Most High killed all their cattle, cows, horses, sheep, everything. They lost their food. They didn't have no meat in the land. They didn't have no fish in the water. Not only that, they used horses and donkeys back in the day to transport stuff, to work, to trade, to deliver stuff. So their way of transportation was cut off. That's sort of like now, when the roads froze over here in Texas, the semi-trucks couldn't deliver food, or people couldn't get to the store, or people couldn't do what they need to do. So the shelves was running low. So this was going on here. The Lord cut off their form of transportation, along with their food. But none of the cattle of the children of Israel died, because none of these plagues affected the children of Israel. Now we're going to go to Exodus chapter 9, verse 8. And they took ashes of the furnace and stood before Pharaoh. And Moses sprinkled it up toward heaven, and it became a boil breaking forth with blains upon man and upon beasts. And the magicians could not stand before Moses because of the boils, for the boil was upon the magicians and upon all the Egyptians. So, boy, you could think of everybody had a outbreak of chicken pox or any other disease that affects the skin, where you got these horrible sores, and that affected all the Egyptians. And that's going to happen again in a way here in America, which is spiritual Egypt. So how it affected all the Egyptians, the Most High is going to cause boils and horrible sores to break out on Americans. And that's spoken of in Revelation, if we're going to bring that out. Revelation chapter 16, verse 2. This talking about the angels pouring out the bowls of God's wrath upon the earth. And the first went out and poured out his vial upon the earth. And there fell a noisome and grievous sore upon the man which had the mark of the beast, and upon them which worship his image. So the brother Yahweh the Maccabees showed a video how the RFID microchip, it causes cancer. It's because all the wavelengths, all the frequencies that chip used to communicate is bad for the body. Not only that, it's metal, it's a foreign substance implanted inside the body that doesn't belong there, so the body rejects it. So in these lab rats, these animals develop sores, they develop cancer. So same thing's going to happen here. Once they make the RFID chip mandatory, the Most High going to give everybody time to take it that's going to take it. But at that point, those who took the mark of the beast, they're going to develop some sort of cancer or some sort of flesh-eating disease that's going to eat the flesh of people or destroy the flesh of people in some way. And that's why you got all these zombie movies where everybody's flesh is messed up. That's going to happen here. So how everybody develop boils and horrible sores, this plague is going to directly hit America again after everybody get the mark of the beast.
These technologies will not make us safer. I think they'll make us sitting ducks for Big Brother.
Dr. Catherine Albrecht also compiled 16 years of studies she says prove the chip can cause cancerous tumors.
It's clear as day that these tumors were not only malignant, but they metastasized, they spread to the lungs, the liver, the thymus, the brain.
These pictures show the tumors growing around the actual chip in the mice and rats.
Certainly the company, I mean, they've done, I think, a tremendous job of keeping that information under wraps for the last several years.
So now we're going to go to Exodus chapter 9, verse 22. And the Lord said unto Moses, stretch out forth thy hand toward heaven, that there may be hail in all the land of Egypt, upon man, upon beast, and upon every herb of the field throughout the land of Egypt. And Moses stretched forth his rod toward heaven. The Lord said thunder and hail, and fire ran along upon the ground. And the Lord rained hail upon the land of Egypt. So there was hail and fire mingled with the hail, very grievous, such as there was not none like it in all the land of Egypt, since it became a nation. And the hail smote throughout all the land of Egypt, all that was in the field, both man, beast, and hail smote every herb of the field, and brake every tree of the field. Only in the land of Goshen, where the children of Israel were, was there no hail. So this pretty much like a super thunderstorm. You got hail, fires happening, probably from the lightning. It struck the beasts of the field. It killed the animals in the wild. It killed their cattle. It destroyed more farms and trees and vegetation. So the Most High just jacked up the economy even more. They had no fish. They had no cattle. They had no farms. They had nothing in the field to eat. They had no way to transport anything, to get food throughout the land of Egypt where people lost stuff. They was losing everything right before their eyes. And this was happening day to day, back to back. So now we're going to go to Exodus chapter 10, verse 12. And the Lord said unto Moses, stretch out thine hand over the land of Egypt for the locusts, that they may come up upon the land of Egypt and eat every herb of the land, even all that the hail has left. And Moses stretched forth his rod over the land of Egypt. And the Lord brought an east wind upon the land all that day and all that night. And when it was morning, the east wind brought up the locusts. And the locusts went up over all the land of Egypt, and rested in all the coasts of Egypt. Very grievous were they. Before them there were no such locusts as they, neither after them shall be such. For they covered the face of the whole earth, so that the land was darkened. And they did eat every herb of the land, and all the fruit of the trees, which the hail had left. And there remained not any green thing in the trees, or in the herbs of the field throughout all the land of Egypt. So the Most High sent locusts to eat all the herbs and vegetation of the field and the farms, and to eat all the fruit out the trees, even the leaves of the trees. So Egypt was naked at this point. No animals, no leaves, no vegetation, no fruit. Egypt was barren at this point, pretty much like it is now. It was a desert.
On the Las Vegas Strip, right across from the Mirage, is this.
In Sin City, it's the insect invasion, putting on a show no one can escape.
They popped up out of nowhere.
A 24/7 onslaught of grasshoppers that really sticks with you.
What the heck, dude? You're all covered in locusts. I know. You're just covered in them, dude.
For many, the first impression felt downright biblical. A migrating horde of bugs so big, you could even see them from space. Experts say a soggy winter plus a mild spring made conditions perfect for the pallid-winged grasshopper, a migratory species that should be gone in a few weeks. But till then...
One thing they're known to do is mate, and that's why there's so many of them around here.
To make matters worse, they're attracted to bright, especially white lights, finding their match made in heaven on the Vegas Strip.
I've seen people running around away from the grasshoppers.
Scientists say the invasions only happened a few times over the past 30 years.
So now the next plague, we're going to go to Exodus chapter 10, verse 21. And the Lord said unto Moses, stretch out thine hand toward heaven, that there may be darkness over the land of Egypt, even darkness which may be felt. And Moses stretched forth his hand toward heaven, and there was a thick darkness in all the land of Egypt 3 days. They saw not one another, neither rose any from his place for 3 days, but all the children of Israel had light in their dwellings. Now, this is kind of hitting America, this darkness. So in Texas, during this storm, we had this power outage, and millions of people didn't have power. And the power would go off for some hours to come back on, but people in America can't survive no hours with no power. So that's the Most High showing how fragile Americans are and how easily this place can be broken down if we even lift up a finger towards this place. But the brothers of Mysteries of the Kingdom, the trilogy, they brought forth a video showing how the U.S. government is going to have strategic blackouts throughout all the land of America to round up people, to round up the so-called blacks and Latin people, the children of Israel, and the people that's on the red and blue list that's going to come up against their new world order. They're going to have these strategic blackouts so nobody can't see, to round us up, thinking nobody won't know about it. But they setting themselves up for failure because the Most High is going to see them. And the angels and the chariots that's above us right now, they're going to see all this from the sky. And that little storm we had where we didn't have power for some hours for a few days, that's not going to be nothing compared to what they have planned next. Now, so during that time, we was losing our cell phone service, so we couldn't reach out to one another or make calls during the time that the power was down. So they're going to have these strategic blackouts. Also, the cell phones and all form of communication won't work. The internet is not going to work, so nobody can spread the word what's going on to keep the people divided, to get people when they least expect it. So the U.S. government is planning all this. Now, Exodus chapter 12, verse 28, and the children of Israel went away and did as the Lord had commanded Moses and Aaron. So did they. And it came to pass that at midnight the Lord smote all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, from the firstborn of Pharaoh that sat on his throne unto the firstborn of the captive that was in the dungeon, and all the firstborn of cattle. And Pharaoh rose up in the night, he and all his servants and all the Egyptians. And there was a great cry in Egypt, for there was not a house where there was not one dead. So the Most High killed all the firstborn of Egypt, because the Pharaoh kept hardening his heart, not letting the people go. And that's sort of going to happen here. There's going to be a bunch of dead Americans throughout all these various plagues. It's not going to be specific to the firstborn. It's going to hit all born of Egypt, all born of America. Everybody except the children of Israel, but more specifically the elect, because here the plagues didn't hit the children of Israel, but this time it's going to hit the children of Israel who fall under America, who's going to take that mark, those who follow the ways of America and not the ways of Yahweh and not the ways of the Bible. So if you don't live according to the Bible or pray to the name of Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, you will be considered an American or an Egyptian, and those plagues are going to hit you. So when we losing power, not having water, not having food, when there's famines in the land, the elect of the children of Israel is not going to suffer. They're going to have everything they need to sustain themselves. But the Americans and the Israelites that follow after Americans, they're going to suffer the effects of these plagues as well. And when the Pharaoh drew nigh, the children of Israel lifted up their eyes, and behold, the Egyptians marched after them, and they were sore afraid. And the children of Israel cried out unto the Lord. So when they finally escaped Egypt, the Egyptians marched after them to probably kill them or take them back captive again. We go to verse 13, and Moses said unto the people, fear ye not, stand still, and see the salvation of the Lord, which he will show you today. For the Egyptians whom ye have seen today, ye shall see them again no more forever. Skip down to 19. And the angel of God, which went before the camp of Israel, removed and went behind them. And the pillar of the cloud went from before their face and stood behind them. Now, this is important here, which I'm going to talk about a few videos from now. And it came between the camp of the Egyptians and the camp of Israel. And it was a cloud of darkness to them, but it gave light by night to these, so that one came not near the other all that night. And Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and the Lord caused the sea to go back by a strong east wind all that night, and made the sea dry land, and the waters were divided. And the children of Israel went into the midst of the sea upon the dry ground, and the waters were a wall unto them on their right and on their left-hand side. We jump down here to verse 26, and the Lord said unto Moses, stretch out thy hand over the sea, and the waters may come again upon the Egyptians, upon their chariots and upon their horsemen. Then Moses stretched forth his hand over the sea, and the sea returned to his strength. When the morning appeared, the Egyptians fled against it, and the Lord overthrew the Egyptians in the midst of the sea. And the waters returned, and covered the chariots and the horsemen, and all the hosts of Pharaoh that came into the sea after them. There remained not so much as one of them. But the children of Israel walked upon dry land in the midst of the sea, and the waters were a wall unto them on their right and on their left. Thus the Lord saved Israel that day out of the hand of the Egyptians, and Israel saw the Egyptians dead upon the seashore. So we read verse 30, it says, the Lord saved Israel that day. So that was salvation. So when the Most High bring these plagues upon America, it's to build up to our salvation. And the salvation was for the Israelites from the Egyptians. We know now that America is the spiritual Egyptians. So salvation is going to be for the Israelites, more specifically the elect, but from the hands of the Americans. But we're going to put up a few more scriptures. These are books of prophecy, so this stuff will come to pass. Ezekiel chapter 4, verse 16. Moreover, he said unto me, Son of man, behold, I will break the staff of bread in Jerusalem, and they shall eat bread by weight and with care, and they shall drink water by measure and with astonishment. Eating bread by care, meaning you're going to ration what you got. You're going to be careful not to overeat, but to spare some. And drink water by measure, meaning you're going to literally measure how much water we drinking, because it's not going to be enough water to freely drink as we would before the plagues of the Most High came upon America, because there's going to be great famine in the land, famine and pestilence. Remember, plague means torment, torture, or continued distress. And verse 17, that they may want bread and water, and be astonished with one another, and consume away for their iniquity. So consume away means to starve to death, meaning they're going to look at each other and be astonished for what little they have, and they will consume away for their iniquity. So they will consume away for not turning back to the Most High and following after Him and seeking Him. And when you starve to death, your body pretty much eats itself. That's what it means to consume away for their iniquity. In Job, which is another book of prophecy, chapter 1, verse 16 through 17, is not the meat cut off before your eyes? Remember when the C virus first popped off? They talk about this shortage of meat, that they had to kill a bunch of animals and throw out a bunch of milk because they couldn't sustain the livestock. So they had to get rid of all of it. As I read this again, it's not the meat cut off before our eyes. Yeah, joy and gladness from the house of our God. The seed is rotting under their clods. The seed is rotting in the dirt. That's why they got GMO foods, because the earth won't naturally produce food for them anymore. And the garners are laid desolate. The barns are broken down, for the corn is withered. How do the beasts groan? The herds of cattle are perplexed, because they have no pasture, no fields to graze in, no grass to eat. Yeah, the flocks of the sheep are made desolate. So that's the livestock being killed off through the starvation. O Lord, to thee I will cry, for the fire hath devoured the pastures of the wilderness. So you can think about all these wildfires in California, how it burns millions and millions of acres. That's all food for the cattle.
Not seen in California since 2018, when the strongest tornado in state history emerged out of the Carr Fire. An EF3 with over 136 mile-per-hour winds. The size of the latest firenado is unclear.
And the flame have burned all the trees of the field. The beasts of the field cry also unto thee, for the rivers of waters are dried up, and fire have devoured the pastures of the wilderness. Cattle not going to have no pasture to graze in, no water. And so therefore, humans won't have no meat to eat and also no vegetation once the Lord starts to release these plagues upon us. So now we're going to go to Revelation chapter 18, verse 4. I heard a voice from heaven saying, Come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins, that ye receive not of her plagues. So come out of her is talking about America. Stop following after her. Stop celebrating these holidays as idol worship. Stop doing Sunday Sabbath worship. The Sabbath is on a Saturday. Stop using God and Jesus when you pray. Use Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, the name of the Father and the name of the Son, so that you do not partake in her sins, that ye receive not of her plagues. It's like if you got a woman, the Most High saying, come out of her. Stop messing with her, because she got you brainwashed. She got you doing all the stuff you don't need to be doing. So that's what the Most High saying, come out of her, that we not receive her plagues, because the plagues that he's going to release on this place won't hit us if we come out of her. But that's it for this video. Everybody stay prayed up, stay using the correct names and seeking the Lord. And again, all praise, glory, and honor go to Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai and Shalom.